I'm joined now by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
So the new news today is that the House may not be in session as long as it was supposed to be, because now we have Mike Johnson threatening to recess the House so as not to have to vote on the Epstein files. Is that correct as of right now?
I don't know if I would say that that's correct, but you are accurate.
Right,
I
right.
think there's a lot of wrong in what you just said,
Yeah.
but you are absolutely accurate in what is going on in the Do Nothing Congress, in the Congress in which they pretend to be about transparency until it's time to be transparent, in the Congress where they pretend to be about the people until it comes down to the votes and the policies to protect the people, and instead they inflict pain. I mean, this is kind of what this Congress is about hypocrisy at the highest levels, even if it means that they are going to go out of their way to protect the criminality, most likely, of this president, and basically waste taxpayer dollars in the process. That sounds about right. Yes, that's tracking.
You said the word transparency, which I think is the right choice of word, because Mike Johnson had used that exact word while talking about the Epstein files in the past. He said that we needed transparency as it relates to these files. And so how do you square this now with what excuse could he possibly have to justify doing whatever he can, bending over backwards, twisting himself into pretzels so that there isn't any vote taken on the Epstein files, when he himself is on record saying that we need transparency about this very issue?
You're asking me to do the impossible.
To get into Mike Johnson's
And
head.
yeah, because this idea of trying to explain the unexplainable, I just can't. I mean, this is part of the reason I'm not a Republican, right? Because they are consistently doing the things that really there is no explanation for, including the fact that they are talking out of both sides of their mouths. And you
Right.
pointed to the speaker, but let's be clear. This president has not been able to wield the level of influence and power that he is wielding without the help of so many minions, including the speaker, but not limited to. Let's not forget this amazing attorney general that we have, who also has been speaking out of both sides of her mouth. So, you know what? There's not very many things that are bipartisan. In this Congress, ever since the Republicans have had control of the House, there's not been very many things that are bipartisan, but in a very bipartisan way, we are absolutely pushing for the release of these files. And that is why the speaker is having to do cartwheels in order to prevent a number of his members from taking votes that they really can't square with their voters. And he's hoping that the news cycle will blow over the next month as we are on recess, and we can come back and everybody's like, Jeffrey Epstein, who?
Right. Well, let's talk about recess for a moment then, because Marjorie Taylor Greene had come out earlier and said that she's gotten more calls about the Epstein issue than any other issue. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she signed on as a co-sponsor for the Massey Kana bill that would compel the release of these files. And so, to what extent does folks calling congressional offices have an impact on their willingness to actually sign on to this kind of legislation?
I don't really know. Interesting example you used. I'll say it that way. I mean, here's the deal. I think that people organized around the big ugly bill and they called, and unfortunately, their calls fell on deaf ears. Now,
Yeah.
granted, they did know that they were doing wrong. And so that's why you saw immediate, like, I'm quitting Congress after I take this bad vote. Or you see people like Senator Tillis who says, never mind, I'm just not going to run for reelection. I mean, we are experiencing kind of this kind of thing, but like, does it actually change their actual votes? A lot of times I would say absolutely not. It's not changing their vote. I think that this is really big for those that believe that they have a large MAGA base of support, because this is becoming one of those delineation points for
Right.
MAGA, not 17 million people losing their health care. Who
Right.
cares? Not dropping bombs without any congressional approval, not making sure that food insecurity is a thing of the past, but the Epstein files. So
Yeah.
this is where we are.
Can you give some? So the bill that we've been speaking about is this is the discharge petition. It takes a certain amount of time for it to be able to come up for a vote. It's called ripening. This likely wouldn't happen until September. Now that Mike Johnson is going to use this maneuver to deprive the session of the requisite amount of days that it needs. But in the meantime, can you explain what the Oversight Committee is doing with regard to compelling the testimony of Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, so one of our subcommittees, the Government Operations Subcommittee, I don't currently serve on that one anymore, but there actually was a motion to subpoena this woman who is currently serving a sentence, I believe, of 20 years to come and testify before the committee. That subpoena was actually prompted by a motion by Tim Burchett, is what I understand. And that motion did go forward. So again, I fully anticipate this was a bipartisan effort by those that serve on the subcommittee for government operations. And so they are supposed to move forward with the subpoena. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, right? As someone who has practiced criminal defense, trying to get someone out of custody, and obviously we need to consult with her lawyer. I don't know if she still has things that are pending some way, somehow on appeal, that would potentially impact the level of truthfulness that we would get out of this. So definitely a lot of questions to be answered. But it is interesting that the committee itself, the subcommittee on oversight, decided to do this. And I think that I would trust this process more than I would trust the Department of Justice
Right.
kind of deciding that they're going to interview her and then ultimately potentially sanitizing the
Right.
information that we get, or potentially engaging in some type of threats, or potentially offering a pardon if certain things were said,
Right.
right? Or not said. So we obviously don't have pardons to offer. And if for some reason there is testimony that takes place, it would take place and both sides would be able to participate. So ultimately, I actually have to say, I would applaud Tim Burchett for attempting to get this done prior to the Department of Justice engaging in this type of conversation, because I don't know what may happen to that witness if the administration gets to her first.
I think that's the perfect point here because it was released this morning that Todd Blanche, who is Trump's personal criminal defense attorney, who now has a job in the White House as Deputy Attorney General, reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell. And if the administration wanted transparency here, isn't it true that they could just release the tranche of files that they already have at their disposal? And so when we hear, for example, that they're going to go to unseal grand jury testimony, knowing that that's like a fraction, it's like 5 or 10% of what's contained already within the files, it's clear that they're just doing this as a distraction method or a delay method. And then when they go after, when they propose to Ghislaine Maxwell that they want to have a conversation with her, well, again, all of the pertinent information, all of the relevant information as it relates to Ghislaine Maxwell is already available in the files, which leads me to believe that if you're doing anything with Ghislaine Maxwell, you're not going to find out any new information because that investigation's already occurred. She's already been convicted. She's serving a 20-year sentence in prison. So at this point, are we crazy to think that the options that would be available to them are, okay, if you have further information, or if you have information that may very well incriminate, oh, I don't know, Donald Trump, for instance, we have a vested interest in keeping you quiet, and so here's what we could potentially offer you.
Yeah. It is sad to think that this is the type of thought process that we go through with our federal government here in the United States. But they have shown time and time again that they are crooked, that they are crooks, and they absolutely are not above any level of criminality. And so it's honestly what we should expect. We should expect them to do criminal things. This is somebody who is a con man and a convict. And so, unfortunately, we have seen him misuse, things such as pardons, where it looks like there's a bit of pay for play.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely fully anticipate that he may most likely offer her a get out of jail free card if she just fails to disclose certain things, or if she decides to say certain other things, right? But I do think that, considering the fact that she probably is the only person who was really intimately engaged with all levels of kind of, or the vast majority of criminality with Epstein. She is the person that can discredit or credit any information. And going
Right.
back to this issue about the grand jury, it is a game that he's playing. He is playing on the fact that as a trained lawyer, I know that grand jury proceedings are supposed to be secret, even after the convictions, if there's convictions, even with no convictions. It is the paramount part of our judicial system is the secrecy that exists within the grand jury process. So absolutely, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to play both sides right now by saying, hey, we are going to make sure that we push for the judge to release the grand jury proceeding so that people ultimately will most likely get mad at the judge
Right.
when the judge just kind of follows the law and potentially does not release that information. And then he says, my hands are tied. I tried. When the reality is that you didn't try. In
Right.
fact, the only thing you tried to do was obstruct, which is why they are going to let us out early, is because clearly Mike Johnson has been given the heads up that he needs to obstruct any official anything from happening as it relates to the Epstein files.
On the issue of obstruction and distraction, we have seen Trump throw everything at the wall. He's threatened to denaturalize Rosie O'Donnell, talked about cane sugar in Coca-Cola, threatened to revoke the stadium of the Washington Commanders if they don't change their name back to the Washington Redskins. He's talked about arresting Barack Obama, relitigating Hillary Clinton's emails in the year of our Lord 2025. And so this morning, he really dove into the Obama stuff, again, calling for him and a bunch of other officials, Comey, Brennan, to be arrested. And so what do you make of the fact that he is desperately trying to distract everybody by pointing instead to Obama, to the point where Obama's office had to release a statement saying that, the allegations are obviously completely baseless?
You know what? I think that we're actually doing good this time. He is the king of distractions, right? And so he has tried everything, and his base is not letting up. And that's great because they tend to be easily distracted. But on
Yeah.
this thing, for whatever reason, it has become just like that sore spot for him, and they won't get off of it. I mean, he directly told them to stop talking about it. He
Yeah.
directly told them, like via his own social media, like shut up about it, right?
Yeah.
And then he decided that he wanted to insult his followers who decided not to let it go, right? So it only looks like he's even more guilty. And here's the deal. Guilty of what? I don't know. Obviously, there's all kinds of allegations out there. But at the same time, I'm like, you still became the nominee and the president of the United States, even though you had been found liable for sexual abuse. Seemingly, people did not care, at
Right.
least your supporters. I mean, even though there was that Access Hollywood tape where you talked about being sexually abusive towards women, they still loved you, even though there were allegations as it relates to the Miss America pageants that you participated in as well. And they still supported you. So, like, even though E. Jean Carroll ended up with a significant amount of money that is owed to her because of your sexual abuse proclivities, I mean, is it a far cry that he somehow did something wrong with his bestie? Okay, because like we got a gazillion pictures of the two of them.
Right.
Like, is it a far cry? No, but like, is it gonna change anything? Probably not. So like, just release it. Like, you go around and you pretend like you're a gangster. You always want to talk about Al Capone and all these other people and whatever, right? And how you're treated that way. So like, do what you do.
I think what's most striking there is if it's already out in the open that Donald Trump is an adjudicated, sexual abuser, there are, dozens of women who've come forward saying that he's harassed them. There's the Access Hollywood tape where he's admitted on camera, although unwittingly, that he is sexually abusive and a predator. You have all of these different allegations that show exactly who Trump is. So this would be nothing different. And yet, what must be in those files for somebody who the whole world already knows all of his baggage as it relates to sexual abuse and being a predator and harassing women? What must be in those files that guy, with all this dirty laundry already aired out, can't let us see it? I think that's the most striking part of all of this. And let's finish off with this finally. What would your message be, to independents or Republicans out there for whom this is a real issue and they're staking their support for this administration on as they kind of see this thing unravel?
I think that this is bigger than the Epstein case itself. I think you have to look at a couple of things. You have to look at the fact that this Department of Justice doesn't seemingly work for the American people, that this Department of Justice has become his personal henchman, right? Like that is and should be scary. And that is something that was talked about in Project 2025, was it talked about this consolidation of power, but it also talked about this lack of independence within the judiciary as well as the Department of Justice. And that's what we're seeing. So we should really be concerned about that. I mean, you talk about what he combined his kind of rhetoric around this week with was threatening a former president, Barack Obama, who absolutely definitely did not have the level of scandals when it came to his morality within his marriage that this one has had. So, I mean, if there's anybody that probably is clean and anybody that's probably dirty, I think we know which is which, right? But everyone should be concerned about the Department of Justice being used in this way. I mean, this also comes on the heels of this Department of Justice only recommending 1 day time served in prison for someone who had been found guilty of a crime on the federal level as it relates to violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor, right? Yeah. And then they were like, oh, give him 1 day time served. Like, we have to be concerned about this Department of Justice, a Department of Justice that would go out and decide that they would try to and would indict sitting members of Congress, right? This Department of Justice that does not see the physical altercation that took place with a sitting senator and decide to go out and prosecute that. This Department of Justice that got rid of the Civil Rights Division while at the same time deciding that Ashley Babbitt, who was in the process of committing a litany of crimes, that her family should somehow get then $5 million. Like, we have to be concerned about the level of corruption and the level of violations of ethics that exist within this Department of Justice. We then also have to be concerned about if they are being this secretive on something that is very public, trying to pretend as if this Epstein thing is just like a whole hoax, when someone is literally sitting in prison, when we know that he had actually been charged and that he had additional charges that he was facing, and then to act like, oop, nope, nothing's here. We have to be concerned about, what type of transparency are we getting in other parts of this federal government? Like when we have bombs that are dropped and then we have no real conversations around that, right? Like, or when you make deals to get foreign planes in violation of the Constitution, like what all is up with that? Or when your family is making deals for new resorts with foreign governments, like so you have to wonder, like, well, what else are you not being transparent about? And what types of vulnerabilities exist within our government because of like how dirty you are, right? So I think that we should look at the totality of this situation and be concerned about the Department of Justice and the fact that they don't know what justice is, as well as we should be concerned about the level of transparency or lack thereof, as well as finally, a lack of a moral compass within this federal government. That is really a big deal, because when it comes down to policy, you should have policy that is orchestrated, is born of this idea of doing right. And everything that we've seen from this administration is that they only know how to do wrong. And this is just another kind of layer to that, because if he is in these files, if he did participate in any of the trafficking of little girls, if this is the type of person that is serving and sitting in the White House, then what do you think he's going to do when it comes to policies for people or children or elders when this is the moral compass that he operates under?
Right. And he and his Republican conference already put that on full display when they decided that, after running a campaign predicated on America first, that in fact they would strip healthcare away from, millions upon millions of people, ship food assistance away to the tune of $300 billion, take jobs away from veterans, cut energy jobs away from Americans, all to basically dump money into ICE enforcement that will, by the way, tear families apart at the hands of the pro-family party and hurt our economy in the meantime. So all of those things, I think, in aggregate are exactly right. Well, Congresswoman, thank you for the fight that you're bringing to this administration on oversight and for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Good to see you.